Welcome back then folks to, of course, special projects, and this time it's the first proper tie-in week between Gran Turismo 7 and Forza Horizon 5. We've got the new 5-car format in GT7, of course, rolling out each day, and also Monday, Wednesday and Friday of this week, rolling out 3 special projects in Forza Horizon 5. Now, the last build I did was also a Jag. I've got a couple of different Jags, funnily enough, because I very rarely do Jag stuff in Gran Turismo, because you just can't really build that many interesting Jags in the game when it comes to replicas. For those of you who don't care about what the story is here and just want to get to the build, of course I'll put the codes here on screen. As far as the livery, it's pretty basic. All I've done is basically just like a colour-coded visual package for it, because I imagine this as being an alternate history production car, and that's where I'm going to get into the idea behind it. See, in real life, there's a particular version of the Jag XK, which many people in the gaming sphere don't talk about, but many owners in real life and many, like, old boy fans of Jag and fans of the XK are very familiar with, called the XK Dynamic R. Most people know about the RS, the RS GT, of course the XKR, but very few people in the gaming world talk about the Dynamic. Now, the Dynamic isn't as flashy as an RS or a GT, but the idea behind the Dynamic is they put everything into one platform. It's the swan song of the XKR. You have the 5-litre engine, over 500 horsepower, but the dynamic diff, dynamic, more active chassis approach to the vehicle. It has a better level of interior kit. Just across the board, they put everything into that car right before the F-Type took over. My idea is a combination of always being a little bit peeved off that the XKR-S GT does not feel anywhere near as extreme, in my opinion, as it should have been. It still has rear seats. Why? It doesn't have a roll cage. Why? It's just a fancy aero package with no extra power, a few tweaks, and it's super rare and very expensive. Now, I get why people like it, and of course I did my XFRS tribute to it in the GT version, but to me the GT feels like a missed opportunity. It's like they were trying to take on the GT3 RS Porsche, but didn't quite go all the way there. They still tried to make it a little bit too kind of comfortable, If you're going to do that, go all in. So this idea is, what if the actual swan song of the XK were not only a throwback to the previous generation, a test car which used to be in Gran Turismo, some of you might have forgotten about this car, called the XKR-R Performance. That was actually a non-production version of the Jag, which had a roll cage. It had more power at the time, it was quicker, and it didn't reach production. It was a more extreme version of the XKR. But then combine that with what ended up being in the F-Type, which was 4-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive advantage, more specifically, of the F-Type generation over the XK, which never had all-wheel drive, was a huge step forward in terms of performance. So my idea is, what if the actual swan song of the XK was something not designed to rival a GT3 or a GT3 RS? What if it was actually Jaguar's answer to a 911 Turbo instead? A 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive XK, using a version, a rolling production prototype, if you will, of what the F-Type's all-wheel drive system would end up being like, with more power. Obviously it would still be heavy, but it would be appropriate to still have the 2+2 seating and a bit more comfort. That's the idea here. Now, obviously a lot of people won't care about any of that, and you'll just want to get straight into the build, but that's the idea here, and as you can tell, it is something which I'm quite passionate about. It's a car which, of course, didn't happen, it's never going to, but I think it's kind of a missed opportunity to have that kind of true crossover between the main advantage of the F-Type and the legacy of the XK. So as far as the build itself, if you decide to use the share codes, then of course it will just get it straight on the car for you. If you do prefer to do it yourself though, I've tried to make this pretty believable, so you want to leave the standard engine in there, pretty obviously. As far as the drivetrain, that's the biggest change. We've gone to 4-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive, of course, in this case. If we take a quick look at the spec, you can see it is improved. Still 1,740 kilos, though, which is actually, 13 kilos lighter, I believe, if I just check my notes. Yeah, 13 kilos less than the rear-wheel drive version. That probably doesn't sound accurate. But again, that ties back into what I said earlier on, where my idea is, when they did this, I imagine them actually doing proper weight loss programs on the car to kind of make up for the all-wheel drive. So it ends up being about the same, in other words, or even a little bit lighter in the case of this one. And in terms of power, it's 36 horses more. Because like I said, another thing that always bugged me about the GT, especially over the RS, is it has no extra power. It's still about 540, which is on par with the next J220, but I mean, come on, the SVR Range Rovers, the SVR F-Types ended up around 575, so clearly the precedent is there for having that kind of horsepower. So that's why I've gone up to that level. As far as the aspiration, we've left it with the supercharger because, of course, as far as the wheels and tyres, we've done a slight upgrade on the tyres to sports, so of course a bit of extra grip. Likewise, the extra width on the front, again, seems appropriate if it were an all-wheel drive version. A little bit wider on the rear as well. I have inched up the rims. I think it looks better with those larger wheels, and as you can tell, I've left the standard Jag rims because, again, production idea, I think it looks more appropriate. As far as the engine, I've gone down basically the route that a lot of real-world owners do, which is the improved supercharger. One of the popular things is a smaller supercharger pulley on an XK, so in this case we've kind of represented that, given it that boost from 540 to 578. Again, it's pretty believable though. As far as the braking, suspension, all that kind of stuff, I have upgraded it. I wouldn't have really wanted to go all the way to race brakes, but I guess it's because the brakes are already kind of, sports spec, that's the only upward move you can make. And it does make a huge difference to the braking power, so at least it is a good trade-off. We've got sports springs as well, so not a huge amount of adjustability, but thankfully you don't really need it. And it's, of course, mostly for the ride height difference. Tightens up the car a little bit as well. Likewise for the anti-roll, we've got sport, front and rear. As far as the chassis reinforcement, I haven't bothered doing any of that. You don't really need it, to be honest. I've done stage 1 weight, which is, of course, what brings you down, especially to counteract the all-wheel drive, to a more modest 1,740 kilos, which, to me, that still sounds about right. If they were to, give it maybe some carbon fibre or extra aluminium here and there, maybe strip out the interior more, still have the 4 seats, but maybe go with like full Alcantara instead of leather to save weight, etc., etc. You could certainly make a car, at least theoretically, still weigh a modest amount. 1,740 kilos isn't actually that crazy of a goal to hit. It's not like that's super lightweight. As far as the transmission, I imagine it having an improved gearbox as well to go with that drivetrain swap. So we've upgraded it from a 6-speed to a 7-speed. Again, you could imagine it using a ZF, as Jaguar often does. I believe they even use the same ZFs as the Maserati Quattroporte and BMW 6 Series and a bunch of other cars. We've left the standard driveline. I have gone for the racing diff as well, and that's it. So not a crazy intensive amount of stuff to do. It's about 40 grand if you either do it yourself or fit my version. Now unfortunately, of course, the acceleration is way over the top. It would not be a 2.7 second 0 to 60 car. It would probably be maybe 3.5 to 3.7 if you use something like an F-Type as a gauge. The SVR, for example, can do about 3.5 second 0 to 60, so that's not out of the realm of possibility, but 2.7 is just ridiculous, so ignore that. Top end speed, I would say 205 is pretty believable, actually, for this car. If you remove the limiter, which many XKs had, give it 578 horsepower, I think it probably could do that, because Jaguar has used stuff like the XFR to do crazy speed records. As far as the gearing, I've just adjusted it to 3.3. Technically, you can get even better top speed out of it. I wanted to make it still feel kind of realistic, and to me 205 is about the upper limit on that. I don't want it to be like a 215 mile an hour car. You could probably get it pretty close to that if you lower it even more. As far as the alignment, of course, that's not adjusted. Anti-roll, springs, etc. Like I said, we've gone for sports stuff, so there's not too much you can change. And as far as the diff, to keep it nice and loose and really make full use of that four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive here, we've got 100% on all of them, and then 70% for the centre split. So that's it for the build, that's it for the tune. Now, of course, we'll jump out on the street and show you what the car can do in practice. Now, I'm fully aware that after all of that blurb, this thing had better be the best thing since sliced bread. All of this talk that I'm giving it about it being a Jag equivalent of a 911 Turbo, blah, 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 you'd expect it to blow your mind. It's not going to blow your mind. I've built it to be as realistic as possible, take a few liberties. Probably the biggest liberty you could argue is in terms of weight. But again, I tried to keep that fairly realistic. 1,740 kilos is still a lot heavier than, for example, an SLR McLaren. It's not too far off a Veyron, so to me that sounds pretty believable, especially when the XK is a fairly simple car by modern standards. In terms of actually driving it, it's nice and loose. The weight and the all-wheel drive don't end up making it too heavy through corners, but the difference is clear. It's way quicker off the line. You don't have anywhere near as much wheel spin, in fact virtually none, compared to the rear-wheel drive version, which means you can attack corners, you can throw this thing around. If in Forza terms you're going to use it online, for seasonals, for playground events, you've just got all that instant grip, especially when you end up 9 times out of 10 off-road at some point anyway. The real beauty of the Porsche 911 Turbo isn't that it's just quicker, quicker. I mean, it is technically quicker than most, but the real beauty is how usable the platform is. And you could say that that probably inspired, at least to some degree, what the R35 Nissan GT-R went for as well. This idea of a true usable supercar. And to me, this could have been that for Jaguar. That's it overall for my idea, my philosophy, if you will, behind an XKR-R as a swan song, a true crossover period, a passing of the baton between the XK and the F-Type. I know I went way deeper on this one than I usually do on a project story, especially for a build which is as simple as this, but I really wanted to kind of give you the idea that I was thinking about in building this car. That's it overall though for this special project. Of course, stick around for the other two coming on Wednesday and Friday. Stick around for more. Maybe check out the Gran Turismo ones if you play GT7 as well. But for now, thanks for watching.